So the special public item for today's meeting is about improving our response to hate crime. Thank you very much for the paper on this. I think you've got a bit of a presentation for us.
I do have prepared some slides. So my name is James Walker, I'm the Chief Inspector, and one of my roles is the hate crime tactical lead. So focus on improving understanding of and response to hate crime across all protected characteristics. I head up the hate crime team. So Nottinghamshire Police has a dedicated hate crime team, which consists of a part-time sergeant and 2 staff members. What that team does is it sets the standards and the direction of travel for our response to hate crime. So that team works to 4 specific strategic objectives. So all their work should be aligned to one of these objectives, and those are to increase reporting. We're aware, or we're told, that a lot of hate crime goes unreported. So we want communities to have trust and confidence to report to us. We want to increase victim satisfaction. Again, that helps build trust and confidence. We want to improve data quality. That allows us to identify trends and ensure that our resources are put in the most appropriate places. And an aim for the team is to build strategic partnerships. So those partnerships that have an influence across the force would be the responsibility of the team. Those objectives have been recently refreshed, and we've recognised that reporting nationally has gone down. We had increased reporting as a metric of understanding, trust and confidence. So we thought to better reflect our objective, we've now changed that objective to improve trust and confidence in policing. So increased reporting does not necessarily show an improve trust and confidence. Therefore, to better reflect our objective, we've changed that. So this is an overview of hate crime going back to 2019. We've seen an 8% decrease in Nottinghamshire in recorded hate crimes for 22 versus 2023. That's broadly in line with the nationally, because they've seen nationally seen a 5% decrease. There's less hate incidents reported than crimes. These have also decreased by 13.6% for the same period. What you'll see there is you'll see an increase over 2020 and 2021. Nationally, we saw an increase during COVID and the lockdown periods. In terms of a comparison, we tend to look at 2019 versus 2023 as kind of a steady state, and you'll see there's a slight increase in crimes from 2019 to 2023, and a decrease in incidents from 2019 to 2023. So broadly speaking, if those 2 figures are added together, crimes and incidents, we're not far off. It's broadly similar from 2019 to 2023. Just accepting that the scale on the left-hand side is slightly different, so it shows it slightly out of proportion. Hate crime reporting and recording tends to fluctuate depending on what's happening in the media. It does tend to track national and local events. For instance, there was 19 separate incidents reported linked to the conflict in Gaza, or deemed to be anti-Semitic. 9 of those were crimes and 10 were non-crimes. In response to that, we did set up a goal group to monitor and ensure that the appropriate engagement and reassurance was undertaken in response to that. I say surge, that increase. It's worth noting that increase in comparison to other areas and nationally is way below. So we have not seen the same impact as other areas. So one of the key points and one of the things that I'm really keen on focusing on with the team is victim service and enhanced victim service. I think this is key to the trust and confidence, so we spend a lot of time and effort in trying to improve the service for victims. Victims of hate crime do receive an enhanced service compared to other crime types. At the point of call, victims are signposted to support networks, and the difference between a hate crime and a hate incident is explained. I'll come to it in a minute, but as you can see from the satisfaction data, one of the areas where were aware that victims weren't as happy or weren't receiving the same sort of results was their expectations. So it's that understanding of what is a hate incident and what would be the result of that versus what is hate crime, but also the importance of reporting both. A welfare call is made by the hate crime team between 10 and 20 days after the incident, and a victim survey is undertaken after 2 to 3 months. The victim survey, the gap for 2 to 3 months, that's there to allow the investigation to be completed. Therefore, the victim can make a comment on the whole investigation from start to finish. The victim survey is undertaken by the research and insight team. At both the welfare call and the victim survey call, the victim can be signposted to support networks. They can be provided additional updates, or it can be directed back to the officer in the case to provide further information or to update the victim. The survey results from the victim survey highlight 2 areas where we can improve. One is action taken. That relates to I equate that to outcomes, achieving positive outcomes for victims, and also their expectations in terms of the difference between an incident and a crime. And the other one is keeping victims updated. Feedback's given to officers, so where a survey is undertaken, a report is sent through to myself, and within this area is highlighted. So if an officer's done a really good job and they've got positive feedback, that officer is given that feedback and given praise. Where there's our service has not reached the standard that we desire, then we look for service recovery and we ask for that incident to be reviewed. So every time that we get feedback from the victim, that's acted upon. So this is slightly out of date since I did this slide, so hot off the press. The last 2 months for August and September, we achieved 87%, so that's the highest we've ever achieved in terms of victim satisfaction. When we started, we had a aspirational target of 85%. We saw that as at the outset as difficult to achieve, but we've consistently achieved that 85%, and the last 2 months we've achieved 87%. Data is another area we focus on. So hate crime is audited. Hate crimes incident is audited. So the hate crime team will look at every hate incident, every hate crime, ensure that it's filled out correctly, provide feedback to the officers where it's not been filled out correctly. There is a nominated inspector that will undertake an early review of every hate crime and incident. Provide feedback to the officer, and they're responsible for filing every hate incident. There's one inspector on the county, one on the city. What that provides is a level of consistency and maintains that standard. We also monitor the compliance in terms of our data compliance with the hate crime audit that the team undertake, and that's monitored in a monthly performance meeting chaired by the superintendent. The other bit that's of note really is the Non-Crime Hate Incidents Code of Practice on recording and retention of personal data. So that was introduced in June 2023 by the Home Office. It's a statutory requirement. It added an objective element to the recording of non-crime hate incidents and added a threshold for recording personal data. One of the roles of the hate crime team is to ensure our compliance with that statutory requirement. And we've introduced checks and balances and altered the process to ensure that we can pick up and check that we're complying with that code of practice. Positive outcomes and out-of-court disposals, so another area that's linked to victim satisfaction. Hate crime is one of the highest positive outcomes of any crime type. We're consistently around 20% for the force. One area that we've introduced is greater use of out-of-court disposals in line with the victim's wishes. So if the victim believes that's a better course of action and is supportive of that course of action, that's something we will certainly consider. Out-of-court disposal usually forms an educational input. We see that as really beneficial because it's an opportunity to change offender behaviour, reduce repeat offending, and hopefully reduce hate crime longer term. One way we're looking to utilise out-of-court disposals more is the out-of-court disposal team have worked with the hate crime team to undertake an early review to identify suitable cases, and those cases that are suitable, they'll contact the officer and provide them with guidance and advice to enable them to utilise the out-of-court options that are available. One area where we've seen success is the Kick It Out. That's a Premier League initiative which provides bespoke educational input to perpetrators of hate crime, specifically at football matches. We've made 12 referrals to Kick It Out, which is the highest of any force. The feedback that we've received from fans, perpetrators and victims has been very positive. And we have actually seen an increase in confidence to report incidents at football matches. So previously whilst we may have incidents reported, we've seen a slight increase in the reporting, but actually what we're seeing now is people willing to support out-of-court disposals because they know that action will be taken as a result of their report. Engagement, as I mentioned previously, the hate crime team do sort of strategic engagement, so the hate crime team are responsible for those areas where it's force engagement, sort of force level, so universities, councils, football clubs, whereas the neighbourhood policing team will do the local engagement. We feel that's entirely right because they need to build those strong community links. In order to enable that to happen, we've worked with the comms team to develop media packs for the neighbourhood teams to support that consistent messaging and branding. We've recently reviewed our media strategy to raise awareness and understanding of hate crime. So the media strategy is aligned to our objectives. One of our main campaign on social media is the Take Aim at Hate campaign, which I'm hoping you may have seen at some point.
I've been pictured in the frame.
Oh, perfect. And that the branding was developed in-house, so the Take Aim at Hate branding, the picture frames that we've used. At its highest, we reached a reach on Facebook of 128,000, so that was a significant result for us. We have shamefully used football clubs to use their popularity along the social media, as well as local clubs like Panthers, celebrities Vicky McClure, as well as the local events and community events. One of the highlights from last year was the Hate Crime Conference. It was held in October 2023 as part of the Hate Crime Awareness Week. It's the first time anything like that's been done. The police organised and hosted it in conjunction with the fire service. The aim of that was to raise awareness, share approaches to tackling hate crime and engage with partners. It was predominantly for partners. We're all trying to tackle hate. It seems to make sense that if we align some of our objectives that we can achieve that together. It was a real success. We had 100 persons, including partners from the NHS, the council, universities, CPS and other third sectors. We undertook a survey to gauge the success of the event. It was positive, and there's been requests for it to be an annual event. And we were now working in partnership with the university with a conference being planned for 2024. The aim will be that hopefully that we partner with different organisations every year to involve different partners and at different locations, so it's not, I mean ideally it won't be continually police led, but with police involvement. As
you know, I attended, and the cross-pollination of the people that were there, all the different partners, was really good as well. Because all those organisations didn't know each other either. Because there's nothing like it, is there? There's no hate crime kept together.
No. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much. That's a really interesting presentation. Thank you. The slide prompted me to think, when you talk about 20% positive outcomes, which is really good. It's really, really high. Does that include out-of-court disposals?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I've got a question about. It seems quite a small team
It is
that you've got. So, what is the size of the dedicated hate crime team in Nottinghamshire, and to what extent is their activity integrated across the wider partnership structure, such as community cohesion within City Council?
So the team is a small team, but the team don't deal with all hate crime. So the role of the team is to set the strategy. The role of the team is to influence the wider response to hate crime. So the team consists of a sergeant who's part-time and 2 staff members, but the role of the team is to setting the standards and influencing the overall response. So the people that actually attend and investigate hate crime is the workforce as a whole, so your response officers and neighbourhood policing teams.
That's really
so whilst it's a small team, it's influence rather than investigating.
Well, thank you for explaining that.
Sorry?
No, that was I think it's really helpful for the public to understand the difference between a hate crime and a non-crime hate incident. Is that the right? Have I got my tongue around that the right way?
Yep.
Yeah. It's a bit of a tongue twister.
So a hate crime is any crime where the victim or another perceives it to be motivated by one of the protected characteristics.
Yeah.
So that's as simple as that. The non-crime hate incident has gone through a couple of rejuvenations, and the Code of Practice has added a couple of tests. So a hate crime incident is any incident that is perceived to be motivated by hostility, but then there's a caveat on that where there's an additional threshold. So we won't record anything that's not motivated by hostility.
Yeah.
It's deemed trivial, irrational, or part of a legitimate debate. So that adds the first test. And the second test is we will only record personal details if there is a risk of future harm, or a risk of risk of significant harm, or a risk of a future offence occurring.
Yeah. Could you give as an example of either?
A hate crime could be a criminal damage taking place where the words used towards an address are racist.
Yeah.
That would be a hate crime. A hate incident would be something that falls below the level of a crime. So it could be the internet is probably a lively one. So the threshold for malicious communications is quite high. So it would be something on the internet where it's racist or homophobic, but falls below the level of malicious communications.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Is that clear enough?
That makes complete sense. Thank you. How is the force assessing the extent to which the ambition to increase reporting of hate crime is successful?
I may have covered that slightly in terms of we did review that, and we thought, well, actually our ambition is not to increase reporting, our ambition is to build trust and confidence, and increased reporting was seen as a metric of that. So a better way of saying it is really what we want to do is to improve trust and confidence. So I suppose that's kind of preempted. We've recognised that, we've changed it because there is a decrease nationally in reporting of hate crime. And a better gauge really is whether people have got trust and confidence. So we're looking at victim satisfaction, feedback from engagement. What's the community feel about our approach to hate crime? So it's a refocus really.
It's interesting because as we did the policing crime survey, and on there it's remained stable. So I just wanted to check. It's reduced, but on our survey it looks like it's stable.
Oh, okay, but the hate crime?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to triangulate those. According to local audits, what is the current data compliance rate for hate crime and non-crime incidents? To what extent is the force compliant with the new statutory code of practice?
So in terms of our local audit, our compliance is around the 90%. So our local audits are 94% of hate crimes are reviewed by a supervisor, 98% of hate crimes have their risk assessment completed, 80% of hate crime occurrences had the correct nickel qualifier. 95% of all cases, the victim was offered victim services. So in terms of our local audit, we are fairly good, normally around the mid to high 90s. In respect of the compliance with the NCHI recording, we've introduced new processes and policies to ensure that we are compliant. So we've changed the risk assessment form to make it mandatory for officers to include their rationale. So we'll include your rationale as to why you're recording a non-crime hate incident against them, whether it's trivial, irrational hostility, and also whether there's a risk of significant harm or a future offence taking place. And they have to feel that's mandatory now, so that ensures that we at least can audit the decision-making process to see if that's compliant with the code of practice. All officers have received a brief on the code of practice. They've received training materials and guidance to help them support in the decision-making. In terms of so our compliance around the code of practice is good. The other bit that we've introduced is incidents that don't get allocated a non-crime hate incident number. So we've thought, or perhaps ones that should be allocated number that aren't allocated number. So we also run a report for safe incidents. That's our command and control system. So shows all the hate safe incidents that don't have an NCHI number, and they're reviewed as well to make sure they don't slip through the net.
Yeah, it sounds very thorough. Do you think the partners understand the new changes from last June?
Difficult to say. We've certainly shared our briefing, so we did a very simplified very simplified briefing for of the code of practice. So we've distilled it to its basic components. We've done a 3-page brief which we've then shared with partners. We've done we've got hate crime champions who we've upskilled around the code of practice. So we have shared with partners. It's not the easiest to understand.
No, it's not.
Code. So it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one for people to understand if you're not using it daily, which is why we've created the processes to ensure compliance.
Thank you. You touched on successful out of court disposal that have been happening. At the moment, I think the hate crime provision is delivered by the Holocaust Centre. What is the take-up rate, and how is what we've got there sufficient and effective?
Well, we've had 12 referrals, which relate to 11 community resolutions and 1 conditional caution. Out of those 12, 8 have completed the session and 4 are yet to complete. Of those who have completed the session, 1 has reoffended with a crime, with a hate element. There has been 1 that's also reoffended, but that wasn't hate related. It's difficult to say with any confidence because the numbers are quite low. We have also made the 12 referrals to kick it out. We recognise out-of-court disposals as an area where we should be utilising more, hence the process which we've introduced to try and increase the uptake and the referrals through to both the Holocaust Centre and Kick It Out.
Thank you. How are the neighbourhood policing teams informed and updated culturally specific needs, experience and expectations in their local community? What resources and information are available to the NPTs? So
the force we've developed, I say we, the Royal We, the force has developed a strategic neighbourhood engagement strategy. So that would include things like the race action plan, the VORG strategies, things that affect the force as a whole. Underneath that, each neighbourhood policing team should undertake their own local engagement plan that gives a nod to the strategic engagement plan, so it incorporates the key points, but it's also specific to their local area, and that will be built around the demographic for that area. So that will take into account things like the census data, council information, in addition to local knowledge. So their engagement should be tailored around the individual needs of that specific community.
Thank you. What is being done to strengthen public confidence in the force's approach to tackling hate crime? I know you've touched on the Kick It Out campaign.
So I think the key bit is our media strategy, and the Take Aim at Hate campaign is sort of at the centre of that. in terms of there's the media side, social media side, which is a Take Aim at Hate campaign, which we're always constantly trying to rejuvenate, and also there's the actual engagements where officers go and speak to members of the community, which is targeted engagement for those communities that we feel need it the most, based on the data that's coming through or information that's passed through to us. For instance, the issues that we've had in Gaza, there was an assault in the city centre from the gay community, so we did work to support the gay community. So I suppose part of it's that we respond, and part of it is our strategy that goes on in the background, which is aligned to our objectives.
Thank you. The public get to listen to this, and hopefully they'll be really reassured about how seriously hate crime is treated here in Nottinghamshire, and what service you give to the public. There's really high satisfaction rates, but keeping victims informed remains the most significant area of challenge in terms of victim satisfaction. And I just wondered, what is being done to strengthen that?
So that's done through the hate crime team deliver training to new recruits. There's a heavy emphasis on ensuring that the victims kept informed. I've outlined the welfare call that's undertaken. The victims can be updated then, and also information passed to the officer in the case. So if the victim's unhappy that they've not been contacted or they're due an update, the officer in the case will be chased around that. There's also the victim satisfaction survey that's undertaken. We have seen some improvement in the kept informed area. So in that area, we've seen an increase from 73% to 80% over a rolling 12 months, and 74 to 80% over the last 6 months. So we are seeing an improvement there.
I think we should be rightly proud of that overall 87%. Because and actually thinking about that, is there any learnings from what you're doing with hate crime that could be passed to how we treat victims more generally within Nottinghamshire Police?
That's potentially something we could look at and share more widely. Yeah.
Okay. I think I've covered all my questions on hate crime. Have you got anything to add, guys?
No.
So that's the hate crime bit of this meeting, which is the public bit, and now we're going to go on to more subjects, and I look forward to seeing you next month when the topic for the public is violence against women and girls. Thank you.